episode 8. It's been a while, 2.5 months or so, around that. You know, after spending the entire summer plopped on the couch eating ketchup chips, beginning of school kind of hit me in the face. So, at least for me, I don't know about.
Oh, for me
else.
too, man. I mean, I moved to New York City, and
right.
things are crazy. I have a new apartment, and yeah, so it's been a little hiatus.
I guess that makes two of us, Sam. I just moved back to Boston a few days ago, so.
That's right.
Nice. Well, yeah, we're back. Welcome, everyone. Episode 8. We are very delighted to have trombonist turned conductor, Teddy Malasky. Teddy, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you guys so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be with you guys.
Thank you, Teddy. We're so excited to get this going. Teddy and I go way back, so it might get weird at points. I'm so sorry for everybody out there.
Yeah, no worries.
I'll try to make it as unweird as possible.
Unweird is my favorite word, dude, because it's still weird, you know.
Sam, do you have a I forget what they're called.
It's called a Madlib, Brandon. And yes, I do. Thanks for asking.
Awesome. Yeah, then feel free to take it away.
All right, I will take it away. So, Teddy, how we do this, we start every time, you know, as it's a metaphorical thing where we as musicians, we need to warm up into something. You know, we can't just jump into something because we're very weak-minded individuals. Anyway, so what I have is a Madlib, and you got to be as creative as possible, and we're going to create a story based on what it is, and I wrote this last night and this morning, so who knows how it's going to turn out. Anyway, let's go.
I've seen some of your other Madlibs, and I have to tell you, they're really impressive, especially the one with Steve and Colin. That one was...
That's all
on point. So I'm excited. Let's get this warm up rolling.
I'm proud of that one, dude. I'm proud of that one. Okay, but I don't know. We'll see about this one. Let's do it. All right. So to begin, let me get my Apple Pencil ready because tech savvy. I need something vague.
Like an adjective or a noun?
Man, be creative.
Ether.
Ooh, about the ether, man. That's what we're talking into right now, the ether.
That's right.
All right, what I need now is a juicy fruit.
Grapefruit.
I need a body part.
Big toe.
That is perfect. Okay. And I need... Has someone ever called you like a goofy nickname in your life?
Tedward.
Tedward?
Like Squidward? Tedward.
Okay, I'm going to call you that for the rest of this podcast. All right. That wasn't for the Madlib. That was just... Okay.
Oh, great.
And your favorite type of bird, Teddy?
Hummingbird.
Okay.
I could have said Wirapuru for all my Messian fans out there, but good luck spelling it.
Wait, can you spell it for us right now?
It's also the bird of death, so maybe not the best choice, but it's a mythical bird. But if you want, we can use Wirapuru.
I kind of like it.
All right, let's go for it.
So spell it for me.
Uirapu. Wirapuru.
Urapuru.
Close enough.
Urapuru.
Think like Wirapuru. Right, there you go.
Fantastic. I'm going to mess it up. All right. What's the hardest piece that you've ever conducted, Teddy? Or worked on or whatever?
Does it have to be famous? People should know it.
Sure, yeah. For the sake of that
I've ever performed. Let's go with Brahms 2.
Brahms 2. Nice. Interesting. I wasn't expecting that. All right. How about an instrument that inspires a big ego?
Trumpet. Must be trumpet.
Man, that's just flew right out of your mouth, man. That was great.
Love you, trumpet players, but my God, keep it real, people.
So we have a lot of these around in the city. but what's like a noisy vehicle that really grinds your gears, Teddy?
Cop cars. Ambulances is too easy.
Yes. Okay. Have you ever gotten really frustrated when you were conducting a group or like rehearsing?
Me? Never. Of course.
So what's something you would say to a group that's really grinding your gears again? Since I'll keep it the same.
Do I like these people?
Let's say it's a mixed bunch.
It's a mixed bunch.
Yes.
Can we focus for more than 5 seconds, please?
I like that. It's gonna take a second to write that down, though.
I actually told a group at NEC once, they were playing like a bunch of middle schoolers, and that didn't go over super well. I had to buy them all Panera cookies for the next rehearsal as an apology.
Oh, no.
Yeah, well, hey, any and all wrongs are forgiven with free food. Am I right?
That's right. I forgive you. The food was great, Teddy. Thank you. I know I was the problem, but
you're always the problem.
I am the problem, but it's always fun to be the problem. Anyway, a negative emotion, and think real negative, man. Like, get in there.
Pissed off.
Oof. Okay, and then your favorite year of life, like the year, like the calendar year,
1998.
Okay.
That was a good year.
The 90s.
Hell yeah. Okay, and last but not least, a facial expression.
Grimace.
A grimace. Fantastic. Let's see how this turns out. All right. Let me get into my
Your story.
Take it all out.
Yes. Get out all the nerves. All right, here we go. Let me tell you a story about the ether. We used to love it here. The grapefruit were sweeter, and the sweetness stung the air. Music all around, big toes jumping and twirling. And who do we have here? A young man by the name of Tedward sits beneath the oldest tree in town. He wipes the sweat from his brow, pulls out his Uripuru baton,
nice,
and begins to conduct Brahms too. With no musicians around, just trees, squirrels, and trumpet players, the piece is alive only in the young man's mind. In his mind, the world around him began to sound the music, the birds flying by on violin, the harsh sun, the horns, the wind in the trees, the flutes and the oboes, and the cop cars on percussion. The young man got frustrated that the musicians of the environment were not following him, so he yelled, "Can we focus for more than 5 seconds, please?" into the hot air in front of him. He began again, but the violin birds missed their entrance. The mistake was not unexpected of the violins. But the young man became even more frustrated. "Why must they not follow me?" he said to himself. The angrier he became, the more the environment didn't follow his pissed off Uripuru baton. The young man realized finally that he hasn't put in 1,998 hours of practice, making him at fault for his imagination failing him. He said with a grimace, "Maybe I should have stuck with the trombone."
I know it was going to come back to that. Well done. Thank you, Sam.
I had to get it in there, man. I had to get it in there, Thanks for the reaction, Brandon. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Awesome.
So let's get into this, man. I mean, what's the deal? You played trombone and then you quit on us, man. What's going on?
It's such a harsh word. My goodness. No, what it really boiled down to was a couple of things. I think the biggest determining factor for me was I was so close. I was taking, it was the second year of my master's. I was taking an audition every 6 weeks, give or take. And I was not having a lot of success, honestly. I don't think I ever advanced out of prelim, and I just got more and more frustrated. And I realized after having a long, hard think, one of those proverbial come to Jesus moments, for lack of a better term, that for whatever reason, I didn't have the love of the instrument that I needed to make it that last, however many percentage points, let's say five, that last 5% that stood between me and being consistent enough to win a job. And it just felt like the more I tried, the more resistance, both internal and external, I encountered. And so that was really frustrating for me. Coupled with the fact that I had just started my conducting career in earnest. I had started the second major and in conducting at NEC, and it opened a whole new world to me. And I had always loved conducting. It was a dream of mine to conduct, and I always did it as much and as best as I could. But I kind of always had thought that the path was straight and narrow. I was going to be an orchestral trombonist, and I thought I knew that was where I wanted my life to go. But as I got more and more into it, I was just like, something isn't right here. And so it was really, I think, the 1-2 punch of realizing that I was not going to, for whatever reason, get to that point where, short of a guarantee, I felt really confident in an audition setting as a trombonist, and kind of discovering this whole new world of conducting that led me down the dark path, as you might say.
Yeah, so you didn't quit on us. You just had to. You found something else that was in the same vein, Right.
I needed to broaden my horizons. There's so much more to music than just playing your instrument. Yeah. And that aspect of making music was always so important to me. It was always about finding my voice through the trombone and giving truth to power to whatever piece it was I was playing. And when I realized that one voice wasn't going to be enough for me, and I had this whole organism at my disposal, and I could work with them, and there's that collaborative aspect. I'm a pretty social person. Being alone in a practice room never suited me very well. Just ask any of my teachers. I was never a great trombone practicer. I, for the longest time, honestly skated by, doing the bare minimum. It was only really when I got to college and recognized that, I'm no longer the big fish in the pond, that I started to even practice seriously. Some old habits die hard, and I don't think I ever got to a point in my trombone practice where, honestly, I was serious enough and dedicated enough to really make it. I honestly rested on my laurels a lot.
And what is it about then conducting that you feel it's more immersive or something? What is it about it that draws you to it?
It's a couple of things. So admittedly, I'm a huge music nerd. So where you or others may think doing music theory homework was really boring and tedious, I couldn't get enough of it. I also really love music history, and just the aspect of being what I consider a conductor to be is a performing scholar, someone who has a very global view of a piece of music, and through time and personal reflection has come to create a personal vision of a piece of music, and then presents that to the ensemble and then to the audience. And that was what was appealing. There's the whole collaborative aspect of it. It's one thing to do it for yourself. And I think there are a lot of conductors out there who frankly are in it for themselves. That is not my MO, never has been. I think what I enjoy most about conducting is the opportunity to enable people, be they friends, colleagues, people I've never met, to embark on a musical journey with me, and to end up in a place where we have a shared understanding. I think that's really beautiful and really powerful and extremely motivating.
Right. Wow.
No.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, Brandon, Jesus Christ, Brandon, go ahead.
Oh, okay. No worries. Going off of what Sam said about being immersed, have you found, I guess, outside of conducting, now when you're like listening to Brahms 2, let's say, since we just discussed Brahms 2 earlier, you found that music, if I'm wording this correctly, has a new breath of life, I suppose, because I feel like as, for me, as an example, as a tuba player, you kind of get used to, I suppose, doing score study, just listening to, maybe just a low brass section or just a woodwind section or just the string section, and you're never able to properly open up your ears and I guess listen to the piece in its entirety, if I'm explaining that all well. So I'm just wondering if conducting has now made you hear things that you didn't hear before when you were listening to a piece or anything of that sort.
Absolutely. I think conducting, just by virtue of doing it, not even just being a conductor, if you got up there and conducted a piece a few times, I think you would walk away from it with a different understanding of what to listen for and how to listen for it. It's interesting because there's so much going on when you're up there on the podium. It's I think Mallory Thompson puts it best when she says conductors exist in three places kind of all at the same time, in the past, the present, and the future, because you're thinking about what it is you just heard, and you're trying to think about, if there's an issue, how do you want to fix it? And you have to remember where that issue is. And you're also trying to think into the future, like, okay, who do I have to bring in here? How do I want to shape this? So there's just kind of a lot going on. But through all of that, you have to keep your ears open and receptive. So whatever is going on up here, whatever thoughts are dancing around your head, you always have to put the most effort, I think, into understanding and truly listening to the sound that is coming at you and being reactive to it. So that's a very long-winded way of answering your question. I apologize for that, but yeah, now when I listen to Brahms 2, for example, when I conducted it, it was right at the end of my first semester in that second year of my master's. And that was a real watershed moment for me as a conductor. My teacher, Charles Peltz, said of that performance, that was the first time I had ever seen you actually conduct. You were not just a trombone player up there as a conductor. You were a conductor up there making music. And so now, that was about 5 years ago, hard to believe. Maybe not that long, but 4 years ago anyway. I listen to the piece now, and I, just by virtue of having done all of that study for that performance, I hear things differently than I did 4 years ago. And I think for any piece of music, be you a conductor or otherwise, what that piece means to you and how you perceive it is inevitably going to change as you mature as a person, and where you are in your life. What the opening theme of Brahms 2 meant to me then is very different than what it means to me now. So yeah, I think just you have to be kind of open to new ideas and new ways of hearing things.
So when you're listening now and making certain decisions on what to do with an ensemble, say in Brahms 2 or something like that, are you thinking of like a visual kind of representation of what the piece is trying to portray? Are you thinking of maybe human connection to it, emotion, or what kind of?
Yeah, so I'm, despite my newfound hobby of painting, which I'm sure we'll get into later,
Yeah.
I am not a terribly visual person. I relate far more to emotion in sound than the idea of color or shape. You know, obviously, as a conductor, what I want to do with my hands is to somehow embody the affect of the music. You know, how it makes me feel should reflect in my gestures. But I think there's a real trap in conducting where conductors, especially young conductors, want so much to embody the music and to look like the music that they are more of a hindrance than a help to their ensembles. And for me, that is kind of the antithesis of what it's about. I see myself as a conductor as a real conduit for energy. I receive the energy that the ensemble gives me, and then I disperse it. You know, I give it back. You know, I direct it wherever I want it to go. So that I think that has a lot to do with it.
So what would you then tell your trombone player self of the past to do better or to practice more at now knowing what you know as a conductor and the more overall aspect of things?
I think honestly, for me, if I was talking to my 16-year-old self, and I got this advice from my teachers even then, but I am obstinate. That is one of my character flaws. Anyone who knows me knows I'm a stubborn person. But listening to singers, man, like listening to people who aren't brass players, because at heart I am still a brass junkie. My favorite pieces to listen to are the big romantic orchestral powerhouse pieces. But you know, it was really my exploration of Monteverdi and Bach, specifically like the Bach cantatas and the masses, listening to how singers can shape phrases. Opera is still a budding interest of mine. I don't know as much of it as I should, but I had the unique experience of conducting several recitative arias from the Magic Flute during my studies at NEC, and that was just such a mind-blowing, like totally earth-shattering experience for me, because working with singers as a conductor is something that I had never done. And just getting to work with them and understand their psychology and how they approach music making was so beneficial to me. So if not listening to them, just talking to them about how they think about music, how they think about shape and phrase and breath support, I think especially for brass players is super important.
Now, how, if going off of that, how do you, I know I had this question for someone else, but I forget what their answer was. How do you get started with listening to someone that is not your instrument, if I'm explaining that well? Because I have a hard time, like, no, actually, just to boil it down to simpler terms, I don't know where to start, per se.
Sure. I think the best way to go about it is to talk to friends. You know, I'm not currently in a music school, but we all have friends who are instrumentalists with different points of view and different musical influences. I think the best thing you can do is to talk to them and see what they say. You know, I think talking to a flute player or a pianist or a violinist is super helpful. just to see, what are you listening to? What's your ideal? Getting a sense for what is out there. There's so much of it, and you're right. It's sometimes really daunting because you don't know what you don't know.
Yes.
And it can be a real challenge to just say, like, man, I don't know where even to start. And that's a real barrier to entry. But I think if you can crowdsource, for lack of a better term, just make a face. We're blessed. It's easy. It's as easy, I think, as making a Facebook post these days and just saying, hey, I am looking for something new to listen to. Give me some ideas.
Yeah. Right. So I love what you just said. Like, you don't know what you don't know. That's like, I mean, honestly, for me, that's been a guiding principle these past few years. Like, in an attempt to be a well-rounded individual as well as being a well-rounded trombonist and musician or whatever, actually going and seeking out new information, something that you maybe wouldn't think would apply to the trombone, some other artistic venture, like reading short stories or writing poetry or something that you wouldn't expect, but you glean certain things, and there are people who talk philosophically about all of these things, like music and art and literature. So let's talk about visual art a little bit, because
Sure.
Teddy has opened his Bob Ross box into painting, and I just want to hear about it because they're amazing. Like, go check them out. Like, really awesome. I think you posted one yesterday or today.
Yeah, I did painting number 9 last night after about 6 weeks of hiatus. Very excited to get back into it. I can go pull one off the wall. I probably should have done that before we started because I had a feeling you were going to ask. But yeah, painting was very much a quarantine hobby of mine that I picked up while we were all on lockdown. And I have to give a shout out to my best friend from high school, Dan Armis, who was the one who really taught me. He had been, I guess, really interested in Bob Ross landscape painting. I, of course, had seen it on YouTube for ASMR purposes. Guilty. I love it.
Very relaxing, man.
I basically couldn't sleep without it for like a year. So
happy trees.
Exactly. Just like the sound of the paintbrush on the canvas. But so I was loosely familiar with it, but Dan really got into it and started doing a lot of paintings. And he reached out to me over the summer and was like, dude, you've got to try this. And I'm stubborn. I admit that readily and happily. And I was like, dude, I'm not a visual artist. Music is where I'm happy. I'm going to stay in my lane. I'm going to stick with what I'm good at. And he twisted my arm. I was spending the summer in Westport, Connecticut. And so he lives in Boston, in Cambridge. And so he drove down for a weekend and brought all of his supplies. And I was shocked to find that I loved it. The extent of my artistic ability outside of this new painting venture is literally stick figures. That's all I've got. But
that's amazing, man. You got to go grab one. Go grab one right now.
All right, man. 1 second. I'll be right back.
Because you guys, everybody listening has to understand this difference between stick figures and what the heck he's doing right now, because it's crazy. I mean, if you've seen Bob Ross, you know. But Brandon, do you do any painting?
I do not.
Oh my!
That is magnificent.
Look at that thing.
Sorry, just putting my headphones back on.
We're not saying anything. We're lost for words, man.
Thank you.
You can take them back off again.
That is awesome.
Look at that, man.
Yeah. So, and this was my 6th one. Like, this one is still kind of miraculous to me, but lots of happy accidents, and I think that's a real important takeaway from my experience with Bob Ross. Life is full of happy accidents. You know, you think, man, I really screwed something up. And you find after the fact that, but for that screw up, you would not be in this newfound position of strength or of, of power, you know, whatever it may be. So, you know, life is really what you make of it, and learning to roll with the punches is super important, you know.
Right.
That has to be tremendously therapeutic, eh? After an entire day of screaming at college students to come back and paint.
Screaming at college
No,
students.
not that you do. I'm just I'm just using that as an example.
Well, you know, like I said, this is a relatively recent development. I've only been doing it since late June, early July. So it is incredibly therapeutic. If you've got a lot of time on your hands and, you know, the desire, it's not terribly expensive to get into. It's an investment, just like any hobby, but I will say the paints last a long, long time. And, you know, the brushes are all reusable and the canvases are dirt cheap. So give it a shot. You know, Bob makes it super approachable. You know, the first one is going to be a mess. The second one is going to be a mess, but it's also a valuable exercise in patience and, learning to roll with the punches. You're just like, okay, that's not what I intended. How can we zhuzh this out and make it work? So I think that's
awesome.
Really important.
So have you kind of gone back? I don't know if are you conducting now? Have you been practicing or?
I've been doing a lot of score study. I think, unfortunately, because of the nature of the pandemic, no one's really doing much live performance.
Right.
So as much as I would like to, and I'm holding out hope for the future, no, unfortunately, I have not had any live conducting opportunities in the last 6+ months. But, you know, this has been a good time for me to sit down and study some scores that I otherwise wouldn't have the time or the energy to do. I've been doing a deep dive on Brahms 1. I've been doing a deep dive on the Mozart Grand Partita and a couple of other scores that, you know, just they've always been there. I know the pieces well, but I never really had the time or the energy to just sit down and really parse it out.
Now, does painting ever pop into your head when you're doing score studying? I'm just curious.
It hasn't yet. I'll be honest. But I think in certain ways it has influenced the way I think about making music. Particularly as it has to deal with blend, the concept of blending sound and color is making a lot more sense to me, because the way these Bob Ross paintings work is you put a layer of thin white paint that all the other paint mixes with, and that's how you get these really cool gradient effects, you know, in the sky and in the water. So thank you.
That's awesome.
Man.
So the idea that you know, there are very distinct shades and textures that can be accomplished, and of course these are things that I thought about before, but to now have sort of that tangible understanding of it, to see, like, you know, if I go over this one more time with the kind of cross stroke, either it'll blend just right or I'll do too much. And if I do too much, I'm stuck with it. So, you know, it's the same idea when I approach a new piece of music or a piece that I'm studying. I'll think, like, how much of this do I want? And if I'm ever in a rehearsal setting, how am I going to get this to a point where it blends just right? Because I feel like another one of the huge motivating factors for me to get into conducting as a trombonist was my personal frustration with so many of the conductors I worked with, particularly in rehearsals. I found them to just be either extraordinarily boring or extraordinarily tedious. And I was just like, I'm not an idiot. A little respect for my intelligence would really go a long way. Yeah. And I feel like, unfortunately, sometimes, especially in school settings, that is in short supply. So I really appreciate and respect conductors who respect my intelligence and respect my time. And that is something that I try to give to my musicians who play for me as well. I'm not the kind of conductor who will beat you over the head for missing a time signature or a key signature in a reading. Like, I'm going to assume that you recognize there was a mistake. And if it continues to be a mistake, then I'll say something later on. But, it's just, there's such a tendency, I think, for conductors to really beat a dead horse in a rehearsal and not trust the musicians to have enough intelligence and agency to make the music with you as a conductor, rather than it has to be this way.
Right.
It's that real collaborative effort that I prize most in making music as a conductor. So I trust my musicians, and I try to give them as much power to meet me where I am with my musical conception. And we kind of do that color blending to make that, that's what's exciting. You never really know what's going to happen in a performance until it happens. And that's kind of the same thing with painting.
Well, I think it's super interesting. I find that the best experiences that I've had with conductors, it's like they're inspiring you to be confident from the beginning in the rehearsal process. Like I guess in a performance, the conductor's job is to just, make everybody feel comfortable as possible anyway, and be confident, whatever. But the most successful I felt is when they start the very beginning, like respecting your time, like you said, giving suggestions only when it's like huge thing, and I don't know. So what kind of strategies can you use as a conductor to do that, to inspire confidence? And
I think one of the biggest tools in a conductor's tool belt can and should be a good sense of humor.
Personality, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, being a stick in the mud does not work when you're on the podium. Again, one of my central beliefs as a conductor is I channel energy. And so I have to read the room, and I have to make a decision. Like, does it feel uptight? We as musicians are so in tune with the idea of a vibe of energy. At least I think I am. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but sitting.
I think so too. Yeah.
Sitting in a trombone section, at the very least, you can tell kind of how people are feeling on any given day.
Yes.
And that much is very true on the podium. Just magnified a couple of factors. So you can get a sense very quickly with an ensemble, kind of where they are mentally, emotionally, and you have to make a very split-second decision as to, how do I want this to be? So I think the best thing for a conductor is to have a great sense of humor. Yeah. Also, just having really good interpersonal skills, not being so caught up in your own head or what it is you're doing that you're forgetting that you're working with 60 plus people who have their own lives and their own troubles and their own successes and everything else. Humor is certainly one. Unfortunately, on the flip side of that, sometimes an ensemble needs a firm hand, and knowing when and how to approach that is equally important. One of the, I guess, immediate comments I got from my teacher at NEC when I started conducting was, you're trying too hard to be their friend. And I was, look, I was the same age as everybody in the ensemble. I didn't necessarily know any more than they did. But more than that, they were my colleagues. They were my friends. These were people who I would go get lunch with after my conducting class. I didn't want to sit there and tell them they were playing like crap. Like that's not a good look. But the reality was, they unfortunately weren't playing at their best. And it's my job to recognize that and to hold them accountable for it. Right. So, short of being a jerk, you have to recognize when and how it's appropriate to broach the subject of something not being good enough. And, you can crack a joke about it. Sure. You can be direct about it. You can ask people to talk to you in a break or after a rehearsal if you think something is going on, or you aren't quite sure how they're thinking about it and you want to kind of have a meeting of the minds. So there are a lot of tactics and tools conductors can use to broach difficult subjects without necessarily making it difficult or awkward, at least not in a larger rehearsal sense. And again, I think it takes somebody who has experienced that on the receiving end to really get it, because I've been called out as a trombone player and it's not fun. No one ever likes to be put on the hot seat, especially in front of your friends. And I try to be really respectful of people's feelings and letting them know that at the end of the day, I'm there to support them and to make them feel empowered to be the best musicians they can be. So I try not to use too many of the negatives, but I can if I have to. I've certainly done it.
It's necessary sometimes, definitely.
It is. Sometimes people are in a funk and they just need kind of a swift kick in the pants to snap out of it.
Yeah.
I can do it.
I mean, also it's like there's other people involved, like
sure.
If it's just one or three people or 1, 2 or 3 people, then there's other people involved and you have to take their time into consideration too, right? Like it's like,
right. So, and it's also, knowing your group, there are inevitably at certain schools or in certain ensembles, there are some sections that are stronger than others. And knowing who those sections are, you can, I think, schedule your rehearsal time accordingly. Conductors, I think, always go in with some kind of a plan for their rehearsals. If they don't, they're either really brave or really stupid. Look, if it's all completely off the cuff, if there's a conductor out there watching this and you can do that, big props. But at least the way I was taught and the way my mind works, you have to have some kind of a framework for what you think your rehearsal is going to look like. You have to have goals that you need to achieve, and you've got a specified amount of time to do it. So going in with that framework and an understanding of, I'm not going to have to worry about the low brass because they're constantly bringing it, like we're doing Brahms 1, the chorale sounds great.
That's right.
Awesome. Yes. Awesome. And I think it's important to also recognize those groups for their successes. It's so easy, I think, as a conductor to just focus on what needs immediate attention. And at least in an orchestra, that always falls on the violins. Sorry, guys. Excuse me. Sorry, guys.
Missing entrances and all that. We've already discussed. We went through that already.
Right. So, or, trumpet players just want to do what trumpet players do and be heard over the rest of the group. And they try really hard and they don't have to. And it's like, guys, come on. Like, I don't want to give you the hand. That doesn't feel good for me. I'm a trombone player, for God's sake. This is not what anybody wants. This is not what I want, but I'll do it. Go on my YouTube channel. You'll see me use it. I'm not afraid to use it. I just don't like to. So, I think going in with an understanding of the musicians you're working with is super important, and factoring that into your rehearsal plan can also alleviate some of those awkward pain points that you might run into otherwise.
Right.
This idea of a framework. This idea of a framework, having a plan, this whole concept of preparation, if you will. I've seen, I've seen some like Zoom masterclasses, some masterclasses in person before all of this, and most famously, I guess, as low brass players, Christian Lindbergh's video on how he prepares as a conductor. I was just curious as to what your kind of like preparation routine, score study routine, in order to get ready for a performance. Yeah, per se.
Sure. So it is a process, and I think everybody has their own unique way of approaching things. And my process is assembled largely from my three most prominent teachers, who are Charles Peltz at the New England Conservatory, Mallory Thompson at Northwestern University, and Mark Scatterday at the Eastman School of Music. From Dr. Scatterday, I learned kind of my beginning stages of score study, which is literally to sit down with a score, read it like a magazine, just kind of flip through it casually, just see what sticks out. As conductors, it is important that either you have a really strong inner voice so that you can audiate or hear what it is you're looking at, or barring that, you have some proficiency with piano so that you can kind of plunk out what it is you're looking at and understand where you are in a piece. But seriously, just sitting down casually, just kind of seeing what pops, making little notes, like I'll star little sections like, oh, that's interesting, I wonder what that's about. So I'll do that. Then I'll go back, and from Mallory Thompson, I got the idea that you can do score study in 3 stages, starting with macro, large formal scale, going through and just figuring out what's the form of the piece. Is it sonata, theme and variations, whatever it is. And then figuring out just what are the very basic, is this the exposition, development, recapitulation, that kind of thing. And then working your way to a micro scale. So figuring out how long each of the phrases are, where the key areas are, what the key relationships are, studying some of the intricate orchestration, understanding how certain instruments interact with others and how certain themes are developed, and then working back out to a macro scale so that you kind of combine all of that information you have gleaned through your score study and making a formal analysis of it. So that's something I got from Charles Peltz at NEC, graphing out what he calls a timeline. So, you start at measure 1 and you go all the way through to the end, and you graph out the key formal areas, the key relationships, various orchestrational techniques, important instruments to look out for and why they're important. So you have that as both a reference in your study and as sort of a synthesis of everything that you've already put into the score. So that's how I do it. I also mark my scores with colored pencils. Some people go crazy. I only use 3 colors. I've developed my system over many years, and it's
maybe with Bob Ross, you'll start using lots of different colors. And
right, I'm going to start putting in clouds and happy trees and the sky. But funny you mentioned that. I do put in adjectives to describe certain emotions that I am going for at a certain section, and I pride myself on my vocabulary. So, I'll come up with some really interesting adjectives like seductive or salacious even,
Nice. Very interesting, Teddy. Yeah.
Right. Hey, I mean, if you got it, flaunt it, right?
Yes, exactly.
But I think words have real power, and understanding what a word can bring out as far as an emotion in another human being is really indispensable for a conductor, especially because I think as a conductor, one of my guiding principles is say as little as possible. Again, thank you, Charles Peltz, for that one. He taught me that if you can't say what you want to say in 7 words or less, you don't know what you want. And to drive that point home, he actually made me run a whole rehearsal only in Italian. And I don't speak Italian, but it was like molto marcato or più sforzato, so something like that. Just get your point across and leave it alone. Let them play, let them experience what it is you're going for. Show it with your hands. We have so much power to make a difference or to influence sound with our hands. I feel like so many conductors are I guess for lack of a better term, trying to pontificate. And first of all, I'm 29 years old. I've lived a lot of life for a 29-year-old. I've seen and experienced some things, but I'm still 29. I don't claim to know more about music than any other 29-year-old who's been through the kind of experiences I've been through, let alone a 50-year-old. So, if I'm like, for example, I had the great fortune and pleasure to conduct the Pershing's own band in Washington, D.C. a couple of summers ago. And they are one of, if not the most incredible group of musicians I've ever worked with. And they are so warm and welcoming and professional. But I wasn't about to tell them how to play Lincolnshire Posy. Are you kidding me? Like, some of those band members have been playing that piece longer than I've been on the planet. So I think recognizing who you are as a musician and trying to, again, meet people where they are is super important, and one of my absolute guiding principles as a conductor.
Gotcha. Right. So as for a layman, let's say, someone who doesn't know all of this lingo that you're using for a conductor, what does a conductor actually do in a performance? Like, how would you describe it to, parents who don't know? Or
sure. So I think the most obvious aspect of what a conductor does is to keep time. We are a human metronome. We keep the band together. Everybody knows exactly what's going on, at least in terms of cohesion. The conductor is responsible for keeping time. A conductor is also very much responsible for training the ensemble in rehearsal to get them performance ready. So how do they do that? They obviously run through the piece a couple of times. They break it apart. But they also have to bring their own point of view and infuse the music with some part of themselves, and make that meaningful for a group of 50 plus musicians who they may never have met before. So I think that is probably the best way I can describe it. Again, I like, as I've gotten older, I like more and more these hippy dippy ideas of energy and channeling and conduits and all of that. But really it's, I think if I were to describe what a conductor does as a layman, they are part psychologist, part architect, and part mathematician, honestly. Wow, It's kind of understanding how something abstract like music can be communicated in a meaningful way to a group of very different people.
Wow. I learned a lot from that. I am the layman that I was talking about.
Well, I'm glad it made sense to at least one person.
At least one. You got one, Teddy.
Thanks.
If you don't mind me going back to the Pershing Zone where you were talking about Lincolnshire Posy, I was just going to ask how you mentioned earlier how what's a good way to put it? You had your friends in the orchestra and the ensemble, and you didn't want to be upfront with them and say, hey, like, this sounds bad, make it better. So I suppose, pairing that up with the Pershing Zone experience, how did you? I don't want to use muster up. Oh, how did you come up with like the confidence to say, hey, respected musician who's been on this planet for more than 40 years and I've been alive, this is a little bit out of tune. Why don't you fix that?
Fortunately, with a group that good, I didn't have to. I went in there. What my problem was, honestly, with that group was I went in there and it just blew my doors down. And I had 35 minutes or so on the podium. I was like, oh no, what do I do? They sound great. And that's a great problem to have, but it's also really terrifying because you're like, oh man, I've got a lot of time and I've got to take it from what I would otherwise consider to be almost performance ready. And I've got a week. Like, I've got 35 minutes every day for 5 days. Like, wow. That's a lot of time, especially for 3 movements of Lincolnshire Posy. Again, a piece that if they didn't know it cold, I'm sure they had played it at least a few times in their careers up to that point. And so for me, I think the most helpful thing, honestly, was just how welcoming they all were. They are they are soldiers, but they are people, and they are really great people, and they just went out of their way to make all of us. It was a conducting workshop I was doing that they hold every summer, and I think they know how difficult it must be for someone in their mid to late 20s or early in their career, not to put an age on it, because there were older and younger people who participated, but people who are early in their career, to get up in front of an ensemble like that and work with them on these standards of the repertoire, it took a lot. For me, I always take a great deal of comfort in my preparation. So I am only as comfortable as my preparation is good, for lack of a better way to put it. So Lincolnshire Posy, again, I had played it, I don't know how many times as a trombone player. It's one of my favorite, band pieces. And I was just excited to work with them on it. And it was daunting, but it was also really exciting because they provided a sort of laboratory environment for me to play with things. I was like, humor me, guys. I would literally say things like, guys, humor me. Let's try this. This could be a complete disaster, but I just want to see how it goes. And often it was a disaster. But, that I think you learn as much or more from your failures as you do from your successes. And I'm a big believer in using rehearsal time as a safe space, like a laboratory. Like, let's try this. This is our time to figure it out. What's behind closed doors? We don't have to impress anybody. Why not, right?
Yes.
So once I felt comfortable just being up there and getting over the idea that, oh my God, I'm working with one of the best bands in the world, I felt really empowered to do that. And I had a lot of fun. It's just so much fun when you've got a really willing group of musicians who just want you to do well and want to do well themselves.
Definitely. Well, let's segue in. I mean, we talked about conducting for a while now, so
yes, we have.
Let's segue into something maybe not so fun.
Sure.
I would like to talk, if you're comfortable, about your health experience in the past. How long has it been?
3 years.
3 years, yes.
3 years in a week, which is crazy.
That is crazy.
So to talk about it, I was diagnosed with cancer on November 1st of 2017. I was 26 years old. It was a month after my 26th birthday, and it was devastating.
Now, what kind of cancer is it again?
It is an extraordinarily rare form of sarcoma. I don't like to give the actual name of it because if you look it up on Google, you find really awful, scary things about it.
Okay.
But suffice to say, it is extraordinarily rare. I think to date, there have been about 230 diagnoses ever.
Wow.
So there isn't a lot known about it, which is what makes it so difficult. So the good thing about it is it responds extraordinarily well to treatment. The bad thing is it is extraordinarily hard to get rid of. So I'm now at a point, I think 3 years into this struggle, battle, journey, whatever you want to call it, where we have reached a sort of impasse, which frankly, from my point of view, is a good thing. I'm living with it now more as like a chronic condition than I am as like a life-threatening disease. Certainly it is cancer and it can progress, and I think this is now relapse number 3. To back up and give some history and context, I was on about 10 months of chemotherapy after the initial diagnosis. And then I had a really large and involved surgery at the University of North Carolina in the summer of 2018. It was 18 and a half hours long, and I've got a 18-inch scar from about here down to my pelvis, where they went in and took out hundreds of tumors, and it was not pretty, but fortunately I recovered really well from it, and I was only in the hospital for about 10 days, which is still kind of miraculous to me after that whole ordeal. And yeah, I was good for about a year. I enrolled at Northwestern in the DMA in January of 2019, and I did well. I felt good about my time there. Unfortunately, in late August of 2019, we found out it was starting to come back. So I had to have more chemotherapy. I took the year off of my degree at Northwestern and stayed home in Florida to pursue that care and take some time to focus on myself. I had lost a lot of weight, upwards of 60 plus pounds. Wow. In a rather short period of about 5 months after the surgery. So I needed to take some time to focus on my health and getting back up to fighting weight. So I did that, and I'm now back up to where I need to be, and I feel great and I look great.
You do look great, Teddy.
Thank you.
I'm so happy that you're looking and healthy and all happy and stuff. So
thank you. I really appreciate that. So this last year was interesting because I was really doing well on the chemotherapy. We had it battled back to a point where they were okay saying that I was in remission. I was planning on going back to Northwestern this fall. And then again, a few months ago, we got news that it was starting to come back. And so I am now receiving a care out of New York City, or Westchester, actually. And so I'm in Boston. I go there. I'm on a clinical trial. I take 4 pills once a day in the morning. And I feel great. It seems to be doing what it needs to be doing. And I have to go to New York once a month for checkups, but otherwise I feel good. And I'm finally at a point now where I'm healthy and strong enough to support myself. Again, that's why I'm here in Boston. I have some agency back in my life, and I feel like I am in a place where I can really succeed again on my own. So that's what's important.
Well, what's really amazed me about you throughout this whole process is kind of the lightness or the air about you when you talk about it, and it's like I can't imagine going through something like that because I haven't. I mean, I've been in the hospital. I've been hospitalized before, but that's a different story, and it's not like an ongoing chronic thing that I have to deal with. So I'm just curious, and I'm sure a lot of people are curious about, we're artists, and what through pain and suffering comes inspiration and motivation and all of this stuff. How can you kind of tell us about how you're different now than when this whole thing started, and also how do you stay so positive about it?
Well, as far as the positivity goes, I made a very conscious decision right off the bat when I was first hospitalized and diagnosed that I needed to be positive, because it is a very unfortunately easy thing to be negative. And I've always been sort of a warrior, someone who worries, not a warrior, but someone who worries about things unnecessarily. And going through an experience like this teaches you that life is unfortunately too short for a lot of the things that we spend our mental energy on. So I think being positive was and is my best defense mechanism against this disease. Knowing, and I think gratitude also plays a large part, because it is my love of life and the people in it that inspire me to fight and to do the best I can each day. And living with this disease for as long as I have now, I've come to understand that I can only do the best that I can do. But that's a lot more than a lot of people might think. As long as you're willing to try and find that inspiration to do what it is you want to do, you have to live life regardless of whether, you're sick or otherwise. You have to live your life like every day is going to be your last, because you don't know what's going to happen. Unfortunately, our time on this planet is extraordinarily short, even in the best of circumstances. And each day is a gift. It really, really is. So the sooner you learn to start treating it like that and to see what's important and what isn't in your life, that really gives a great sense of clarity to how it is you decide to spend your time. It used to be really hard for me to say no to things before this diagnosis. I think with a lot of young musicians, especially, you always want to take every gig you can get. You always want that exposure or that opportunity. But sometimes in so doing, you are acting against your own best interests. You put too much on yourself, or you just aren't in a place where you're set up for success and you're not ready for that kind of an experience yet. And it's okay to say no. In fact, it's better to say no and to take the time to grow and think about what it is that will make you happy. So don't do things because people tell you it's good for you. Do things because you want to do them. That's kind of my guiding principle on that.
Absolutely. It's great. I mean, a lot of this parallels with how I feel about mindfulness practice, like meditation and stuff like that. Like the things that you can gain from being around yourself for a while and being in silence no YouTube videos going on, no Netflix, you know. A lot of people I feel like are having more and more trouble with that aspect of life. It's like, oh, I want to be talking to my friends, I want to be doing this, but staying positive and being in the moment, I guess. And we had a phone call this past weekend, Teddy, and talked about how maybe you should talk about it, the sunset that you were talking about. And
sure. So painting, again, to get back to that, has really given me a deep appreciation of the beauty of nature that I think was there before, but I never really took the time to acknowledge or really appreciate the way that I do now. You know, spending that summer, or this past summer in Westport, I just found myself struck so often by the shape of a cloud, or the color and shape of a tree. And there was actually one really incredible sunset where I just got up from the dinner table, didn't say a word, walked outside and just stared at it for like a good 10 minutes. And I kind of got teary-eyed because I was like, these are things that have always been there, but so many people, myself included, take for granted. And those are it's the small things in life that I think, as soon as you put yourself in a position where you can enjoy and appreciate them, they mean so much more. And that's something, again, that's a lesson I learned for people. You know, of course I loved all my friends, but you hug people a little bit tighter and a little bit longer when you are faced with a really difficult health crisis, and you don't know it, you know, if they're people you don't see very often, if you're going to see them again. So you really learn to appreciate those really beautiful moments in life. And I think that's a real gift that I've been given, and a real appreciation. You know, like you said, unfortunately, in life, it takes often pain and struggle to find these kernels of truth and beauty.
Yes.
And while I would never say I'm grateful for a cancer diagnosis, I'm certainly grateful for the lessons I've gotten out of it.
Right.
Well, let's segue into much happier.
Sure.
Conversation.
Let's raise the vibe back up.
Yeah, let's raise the vibe back up. Let's.
We're very in tune as musicians to the vibe, people. We are here for you and your vibe experience. Okay, there we go.
It's gonna be great. It's gonna be huge.
It's gonna be huge.
Let's not get into that. Oh
no. That's a vibe we don't want to enter.
No.
So I've actually been meaning to ask before we get into our special post interview game here. This going back to the idea of preparation, all the preparation that you do when you do conduct. I'm actually curious if any of that has crept into your kind of like your daily life, or even your practice life. You know, the idea of conducting, like preparing, having a rehearsal plan, maybe translating to planning out your day or your practice session. This idea of like as a conductor, having your ears always open, maybe having your ears always open in the practice room, and anything like that.
Sure. So I will admit it hasn't been anything truly profound, but yes, it has crept into my life in some helpful, meaningful ways. As a trombonist, I was never very organized. I mean, even still kind of outside of my musical life, if you ask my family, they'd say I'm a space case. But you know, little things like I do a better job now of scheduling my day. I never used to make shopping lists when I went to the grocery store. I'd just be like, I hope I remember I need this. And now I'm like, no, we're going with a plan. Okay. So it's like,
I forget something every time, man. I swear.
Yeah. You know, even sometimes with a list, you're just like, Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, I think little things, just being a conductor, you have to have a little bit of a type A personality. You don't have to, obviously the more type A you are, it helps, but you can also go too far. But I think I've learned how to regiment my life better and how to keep myself busy better, for lack of a better term, because as a trombone player, I was like, okay, I would always look forward to what I was doing after I practiced. Practicing was an obligation. It was something I had to do, but it was never something I looked forward to. It was something that just had to be done because I had to do it. I was like, I was looking forward to going to the bar to hang out with my friends after, or, going to a concert or whatever. So I think conducting has brought a real appreciation for the process of making music that didn't used to be there. Again, it was a chore for me to practice the trombone. Sorry, Steve Lang, if you're listening to this.
Steve.
Hello, Steve.
Not that it was ever
Hi,
a chore. Preparing for our lessons, I loved them and I cherish them still, and I learned a lot. Of course, studying with people like Steve Lang and Mick Mulcahy and so many other incredible people that I've had the great fortune of getting to study with. Their lessons all still mean a lot. But for whatever reason, the trombone was always kind of a pain in my ass, for lack of a better term. So
I vibe with that, Teddy.
There's always something with the damn thing, isn't it?
Always something. That's right.
So I think there's a newfound sense of appreciation and lightness, to take your word, Sam, that comes with this new point of view that I have as far as making music. It's not a chore. It's fun. It's like, sitting down to do score study is like my daily Sudoku. It's like a puzzle. You're just like, all right, let's have some fun with it and figure this out. What makes this piece tick? Right. So
yeah, I mean, going off of that, like I said that I vibe with having problems with the trombone or whatever, but really what it's come down to is my thoughts on how I'm practicing and things like that have changed over time. Like I do more of the score study, the listening, all that stuff. Like I almost think I do the same kind of things you do now, Teddy, to practice my instrument. It's not just, I mean, I do my fundamentals every day and all of that stuff, and I find that fun sometimes. Sometimes it's just an obligation. It's obligatory, of course. But you always find something new, and there's these depths that you can go to with every little aspect of trombone, of score studying, and there's always someone better than you at this one thing, and you can learn something from that. And yeah, I think that the inspiration comes from realizing that and being aware of it and knowing what you don't know, right? I guess,
or at least trying to be aware of what you don't know.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And to your point, I think the older we get as musicians, the more it is incumbent upon us to spend not necessarily less time approaching the instrument, but more time approaching everything around the instrument. Yes. I will never forget, I was 21 years old at the Aspen Music Festival, and it was my week to play with the top orchestra, where all the teachers, the pros, play.
Right.
And it was a big week. We were doing Heldenleben with Manfred Honeck, and Tom Hooten was playing principal trumpet. And I got to the hall like a good hour and a half before the downbeat of the first rehearsal. Just get set up, warm up, just be around. And I pull into the parking lot, and who's sitting there in their car but Tom Hooten with his headphones on and a score of Heldenleben and a pencil in hand, marking the score and going through it. And I just remember sitting there thinking to myself, dude, you're principal trumpet of the LA Phil. Like, you know this piece. Why are you doing that? And then I recognized that, oh, he's making sure he knows this piece. And he's doing the legwork that it's that kind of work that got him there in the first place. It was that recognition of, oh, he's not just a master of his instrument. He's a master of his craft. He understands the big picture, and that's why he is successful. That was like a real light bulb moment for me.
Right. Exactly. Yes, the big picture. This is why I gravitate towards pianists and things like that. Because that's their whole thing, like they are responsible for what you're hearing, the whole part of it, right?
Absolutely.
So the big picture is once you understand how to play the piano and once you can play the music, it's like, what are you actually saying with it? And I think that, like, as a conductor, you're doing the same thing, and as musicians of like an individual musician in an orchestra, being aware that that's going on is so important. It's like so important.
It's vitally important, because as a conductor, there's nothing more frustrating for me than a musician who's buried in their stand. Yes. Just the amount of information that can be transmitted through eye contact is unreal. And it's something that you can't experience unless you have it. Look, it's meaningful to make eye contact as a player with a conductor, but it is infinitely, I think, just speaking personally, more meaningful for me as a conductor to make eye contact with the musician, to understand, because you can just sense where they are in their head for whatever reason. You don't have to be a particularly empathetic person to, if you get one of those, you're like, oh, that person's in the weeds, whereas you get one of those, okay, great, we're good. So it is vitally important for any ensemble musician to really understand the big picture. And I think a great conductor will, if not come in with an expectation of that, then be able to establish that kind of global perspective quickly, and then build upon it so that everybody's on the same page, and you get that je ne sais quoi aspect in a performance where you're just left breathless at the end. You're like, how did that happen? That's like one of those, that's what I live for. It's those really unique performances where you're just like, you can't breathe at the end. You don't want to disrupt the energy and the sound in the room. And that's what it's all about for me.
Yes, when the audience doesn't clap for like a good minute after you stop, that's the best, man.
And
there's something about
I'm that guy who holds my hands up and just like, I'm like, no, do not clap.
Yes.
Don't do it.
That one guy in the audience who jumps up, bravo.
No, sit down.
Sometimes even during the last note of the piece, right? You're like,
yeah, no, it's like I had a small incident at Northwestern in one of my concerts where I like actually held it and someone started clapping, then stopped clapping, and then I put my hands down and they all started clapping. I was like, that's right, buddy, you wait.
Turn around and look with your hands up.
Yeah,
right?
Basically. Like,
yeah.
Just like, no, I'm not moving. You stop clapping. Okay, now we're done.
That's awesome. I love it. So much power, Teddy. So powerful.
Oh, please. I do what I can. Let's say that.
Well, there's so much more that we could talk about, man. But it's been an hour and 25 minutes. Can you believe that? That's crazy.
Time flies when you're having fun, right?
Seriously. So let's go into Brandon's special game that he's got prepared for us.
All right, let's do it.
All right. So at the end of each episode, we normally have a few rapid fire questions for our guests, and they're not necessarily like rapid fire per se, but just like just like whatever your answer is fine. All right.
Okay. So whatever just springs to the front of my mind.
Yeah.
Or the back of it.
Oh goodness.
Or the side.
True.
Yep.
You don't want what comes from back here. It's dirty.
Oh, yes, we do. It equals more views, Teddy. That's what we're looking for. I'm just kidding. All right, guys.
All
I'm
right.
sorry. We're keeping it PG in the Tone Dome today.
So question number 1: the weirdest thing you've seen in someone else's home. Some of these are recycled, by the way. So if you've already or have already heard these questions, then
The weirdest thing I've ever seen in someone's home.
yeah.
Oh God. That would have to be an African fertility statue.
Wow. I do
Wow,
not know
that's
what that
cool.
is, but
You can Google it, but I don't advise it.
oh, okay. All right. The second one. The last conductor that you like physically like observed.
Mallory Thompson.
Question number 3. Your favorite Among Us color.
Gotta be red.
Nice. Red sus, as they say. Nice. All right. Build your perfect sandwich.
Oh man. Gotta be Jersey Mike's. They're Italian. Mike's Way. So that is ham, salami, capicola, lettuce, tomato, onion, olive oil, red wine vinegar, oregano, salt, pepper.
Jersey Mike's, we're coming to collect for this shout
You're
out.
welcome. You're welcome for that.
Free advertising here. All right. And then the 5th question. Your favorite piece or song from a soundtrack?
Oh, it's got to be the opening to Jurassic Park.
Nice.
Yeah.
Jurassic Park theme song. Tell me that's not going to be stuck in your head all day. You're welcome.
It is right now already. Thank you so much. Right when you said that, I was like, oh no.
Yep, there it is.
All right. Bonus question. I kind of left this as a optional question, just in case you might see it best not to answer this, but
Goodness.
Oh no.
no, it's not too bad. So choose one conductor anywhere, who will unfortunately have a bad lunch, and you'll have to fill in for them. So I suppose to boil it down, one orchestra that you would want to conduct one day.
Gotta be Chicago. And that's no shade to Boston, because I love Boston and I would jump at the opportunity. But oh man, Chicago is sort of my heart's orchestra, for lack of a better term. I didn't have a hometown orchestra really growing up, and so Chicago was one of, if not the first orchestras I ever saw live, and I went religiously multiple times a week for many years. So their sound is really still very near and dear to my heart, and I love all of the connections I've made with those incredible people in that orchestra. So if I'm ever so lucky to get to conduct the Chicago Symphony, or I guess even more ideally the National Brass Ensemble, where it's all the big heavy hitters from all over the world, be still my heart.
So actually, we set that up for you. So no, I'm just kidding.
I won the lottery.
Surprise!
Well,
You're conducting tomorrow.
I'm good. Give me the scores now, and I'll do it.
I meant tonight.
I've done it on one of my first conducting gigs, believe it or not, was done with less than 24 hours notice. I was conducting a group in my undergrad comprised of Civic Orchestra of Chicago brass members. They called themselves the New Chicago Brass. And they wanted an associate conductor. And my roommate, Ansel Norris, shout out Ansel, was in the group and said, hey man, they're looking for a conductor. They're having a rehearsal tomorrow and they want you to come in, and here are 8 pieces that you need to learn.
Wow.
I was like, well, I guess I'm not going to class tomorrow. So I skipped all of my classes, learned all the scores, went in there, and got the gig. So it was fun.
Awesome.
Heck yeah. Well, Teddy, this has been fantastic. We'll have to do it again because I have more questions for you. I wrote down so many things, but seriously, thank you so much. So happy to see you in good health.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I am
Yes.
just so grateful to be in good health and to have this new chapter in my life that I am so looking forward to exploring. And yeah, anytime you guys want to chat, I am imminently available. So
heck yeah. Oh, and
Maybe-
Teddy's playing with the idea of starting a podcast too, so look out for that, people.
Yeah, I was just about to say, if that comes to fruition, and it's looking increasingly like it will, I might have to have you guys on
Yeah.
to pick your brains about your musical experiences, because the idea I'm toying with is similar to this, but a little different.
A little different. Yes.
So stay tuned, and here's hoping we can make it work.
Fantastic.
Well, thank you very much, Teddy. This has all been great.
Well, thanks so much, Brandon, and thank you, Sam. And I guess until next time, be well.
Heck
Until
yeah,
next
this has
time.
been the Tone Dome.
Yes,
Woo!
everyone. Thank you again.
We did it.
We'll have more info
We're back.
on episode 9. Episode 9 shortly. In the meantime, it's about to be winter season. Wash your hands. Get your shots.
Wear your
And
mask.
Practice.
Wear your masks.
Practice, everybody.
Listen to music.
Yes.
Enjoy
Yeah.
life for what it can give you. Just because you're
Exactly.
stuck inside doesn't mean you're stuck in life.
Exactly.
right.
Exactly.
Everybody's stuck inside, so
Yeah.
Make it work. You guys certainly are. So
I mean, we took a 2-month hiatus, so I mean, we're getting there. We're getting back,
I
Anyway,
feel the struggle.
bye everybody.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.